Welcome back to the Arsenal report. It began with rumours, small, almost laughable at first. Bernardo Silva to Arsenal? To leave Manchester City, where he had won everything there was to win? Surely not. But behind the scenes, something real was brewing. Arsenal weren't just dreaming, they were planning. Quietly, boldly. Mikel Arteta, once Pep Guardiola's protégé and now his most dangerous rival, had never forgotten the quiet genius of Bernardo Silva. He had coached him, trained with him, watched him break lines and create space out of nothing. Arteta didn't just admire Bernardo, he understood him. Bernardo, now 30, had just returned from another long season with City. Though still brilliant, he had begun to feel the routine closing in. Trophies no longer gave him goosebumps. The thrill was fading. When Arteta called, the conversation hit deeper than expected. "You can still be a legend here," Arteta said. "At Arsenal, you won't be part of a system, you'll be the soul of it." It wasn't an easy decision. Manchester City had been home for 7 years. Bernardo had been instrumental in their historic treble, their invincible run, and their rise to European dominance. But something about Arteta's vision, his passion, his clarity, stirred something new inside him. Jorge Mendes, Bernardo's agent, started making calls. Arsenal were ready to spend £65 million, with performance bonuses bringing it closer to £75 million. For a player of Bernardo's age, it was audacious. But Arsenal saw it as an investment in leadership, vision, and artistry. Guardiola, ever the pragmatist, didn't stand in the way. "He's earned the right to choose," Pep told the press. "If he wants to write a new chapter, he does so with my blessing." On July 14th, 2025, Fabrizio Romano dropped the bomb. "Here we go! Bernardo Silva to Arsenal, confirmed." The Arsenal fanbase exploded. For years, they had waited for a marquee signing, someone who wasn't just talented, but proven. Someone who could guide Bukayo Saka, Martin Odegaard, and Gabriel Martinelli with wisdom and grace. Bernardo was that player. He arrived at Colney in a dark grey suit, understated but elegant, just like his playing style. Cameras followed his every move as he shook hands with staff, walked the training pitch, and posed with his new shirt, number 20. A number Arsenal fans would soon revere. In his unveiling interview, Bernardo was candid. "I came here because I believe in the project," he said. "This club has hunger, identity, and youth. I want to help shape the next chapter of Arsenal's story." The media called it a coup. Some called it madness. But the effect was immediate. Training sessions became sharper. Young players watched Bernardo's every move. How he turned with a single touch. How he communicated in whispers and gestures. How he demanded intensity without raising his voice. In Arsenal's first pre-season friendly, he debuted in front of 60,000 fans at the Emirates. He didn't score, but the way he pulled defenders, linked play, and found Odegaard in pockets of space left the crowd in awe. The new season started with a London derby at the Emirates, Arsenal versus Chelsea. All eyes were on Bernardo. Within 15 minutes, he had assisted one and helped create another with a sublime dummy that freed Saka on the wing. Arsenal won 3-1. Pundits were quick to praise. "Bernardo's IQ changes everything," said Ian Wright. "He doesn't just play the game, he bends it." But Bernardo wasn't focused on praise, he was focused on impact. He became a mentor to the squad, often staying behind after training to work with younger midfielders. In the dressing room, his presence settled nerves during tense moments. Off the pitch, he organised dinners, built relationships, and made sure the squad was united. Arteta, now more animated than ever, credited him with being the glue Arsenal had been missing. By December, Arsenal were top of the league, with Bernardo pulling strings like a maestro. He wasn't the fastest or strongest, but he moved like water, flowing into gaps, dissolving pressure, igniting attacks. His standout moment came at Anfield. Arsenal were 2-1 down. The clock read 82 minutes. Bernardo, exhausted, picked up the ball deep in midfield. With 2 feints and a sudden burst, he left McAllister and Szoboszlai chasing shadows. A pinpoint through ball found Gabriel Jesus, who equalised. Then, in the 91st minute, he curled in the winner from 22 yards. Silence fell across the Kop. The Gunners roared. Bernardo didn't celebrate wildly. He raised his hand, bowed his head, and jogged back to the halfway line. Classic Bernardo. By the end of the season, he had 12 assists and 8 goals. But more importantly, he had changed the team's identity. Arsenal were no longer just youthful and energetic. They were wise, controlled, champions in the making. Another news. Mikel Arteta could pull off major coup for forward he worked with at Man City, but club must pay £93 million if they want to land Benjamin Sesko. Arsenal have made inquiries over Leroy Sané as the Germany forward assesses his options this summer. Sané, 29, is out of contract at Bayern Munich next month and has several options as a Bosman free transfer for next season, with Arsenal now emerging as one of the clubs who have asked about the conditions of a deal. Mikel Arteta worked with Sané at Manchester City when he was on Pep Guardiola's coaching staff before moving to the Emirates Stadium. Sané won 2 Premier League titles during his time at City. Andrea Berta, sporting director at Arsenal, has been working on several deals as the club search for a centre-forward. Loanee Raheem Sterling will return to Chelsea, which could open a place for a wide forward. RB Leipzig have put an asking price of £92.5 million on Benjamin Sesko as Premier League clubs line up to make bids for the Slovenia striker. That market value would be comparable with strikers of a similar profile, such as Alexander Isak, who Newcastle United are hopeful of keeping this summer, but is rated beyond £100 million. Sesko was on Manchester United's radar around the time he moved within the Red Bull stable of clubs, switching from Salzburg in Austria to the Bundesliga. In 2 years at Red Bull Arena, he has scored 39 goals in all competitions. He also has a long-term contract, signed a year ago, committing him to the German club until 2029, which means he can command full market value if a club were to move for him this summer. Premier League clubs have been looking at the strikers on the market in what is expected to be a busy summer of transfer activity. In the case of Matthias Cunha, he had a buyout clause, which Manchester United have met. England under-21 striker Liam Delap also has a set price for a club to buy him from Ipswich Town. Sporting Lisbon's Victor Gyökeres, the 26-year-old Sweden international, is also on Arsenal's shortlist, and the former Coventry City player could go for between £60 million and £70 million. Arsenal are also set to bolster their midfield with Martin Zubimendi from Real Sociedad, who has a £51 million release clause and is scheduled for a medical before completing his move from La Liga to the Premier League. In a bold and era-defining move, Arsenal Football Club have struck a record-breaking deal to sign Spanish winger Nico Williams from Athletic Bilbao, a transfer that not only highlights the Gunners' newfound ambition, but also sends shockwaves across Europe. With reports confirming the deal as done, this acquisition is expected to become the most expensive in Arsenal's history, potentially eclipsing the £105 million paid for Declan Rice in 2023. This transfer is more than just about a player changing clubs. It's a statement of intent from a side determined to win the Premier League and Champions League in the near future. Nico Williams, one of the most electric and promising wingers in world football, will now don the red and white of Arsenal.